Hello, everyone. Welcome to EQ Conversations. My name is Eric Pennington with the Spirit of EQ, and we're so glad that you're joining us. For those of you here live, as well as for those of you who may be picking up this particular session afterwards in recording. We do these sessions primarily because we wanted to give our audience an opportunity to learn and to digest a bit more from a personal level. We do a lot of work at Spirit of EQ with official training and development and coaching and those kind of things, which is wonderful. But we really felt like, wouldn't it be great if we could get some personal, insightful, and vulnerable takes from guests, certainly who would be willing to do that, so that we can keep this real, because that's something I very, very much value, is keeping it real. We can teach you and give you all kinds of information, but I think it's really, really powerful to hear the insights of someone else's story and how emotional intelligence is showing up for them in the real world in the day to day. So with that, I would ask you again, if you could please keep yourself on mute. We will go for about an hour today. The first 30 to 45 minutes will be the conversation that Ajené and I will have. And then we will give you guys room to be able to ask questions, whether that's via chat or if verbal, you can unmute yourself. The other thing I would tell you that this is a session is also designed for psychological safety. Psychological safety for me, psychological safety for Ajené, our guest, as well as for you. You can feel free to know that this is a place where you can ask questions and you can comment and talk in a way that leaves you feeling like this is a place where I can go and I'm going to be good. That's very important to us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start and welcome Ajené. And Ajené, as you know, I'm a very, very transparent, open guy. So is it Wilcoxson is the pronunciation? Oh my gosh. I typically butcher that because I've always just referred to you as Ajene, right? So with that, you are not only just a guest, as you know, you are a beloved brother who we've known each other, not for a long, long time, but long enough to where we've had so many conversations. And when we were putting together this series, I started thinking, man, it'd be great to have you on because I know your insights could be of value to those who'd attend, certainly who are here today, but also for those folks that may not be able to and will pick up in a recording. So I do so appreciate you joining us today, man.
No, I'm honored, Eric. Thank you.
So as well, could you maybe tell the audience, I know we have your bio in our promotion for the session and all, can you tell the audience a little bit about your background and that type of thing, and then we'll get right into some conversation.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. So I have a doctorate in ministry with emphasis in multi-faith theology, have an MBA. I've been teaching at a community college in Riverside, California for about 23 years. Wow. I teach entrepreneurship and business, which I really love. And then combined with that, I'll say over the last 15 or so years, I've been really immersed in the world of emotional intelligence. And to be honest, Eric, with me going to seminary and then going to get my doctorate, I see the connection, which I hope we can talk about a little bit today, between spirituality and emotions.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I want to touch on that right out of the gate. You know, you mentioned spirituality, and I've always found it fascinating, at least in America, in certain facets. There's always, when you mention spirituality, the room gets really quiet because they think somebody's about ready to preach or somebody's about ready to talk about your soul and heaven and hell and all of that. But it's much more than that, isn't it?
It is much more than that. When I think of spirituality, particularly as it relates to emotions, I'm more focused on how it can give me insight so that I can create a richer, fuller, meaningful life.
So, you know, that's powerful, Ajené, the idea of insight. Because when I think of that, it's almost like I'm for example, if you handed me a book and said this book could really help you with your physical health, right? I'd open it up and I'd look through, and maybe I'd sit and read, and I'd want to gain insight as to, well, how am I going to make this thing called my physical health better, as an example. And when we talk about spiritual, we're talking about who we are at our core, right?
Yes, yes. I'm talking about who I am at my core and my connection. My connection to my students, my friends, my peers, all those that I am in relationship with, which is everyone, even the person that I walk by the street and smile at. That's a connection. So spirituality for me, Eric, and we've talked about this, but it involves that awareness of self. So I'm always self-reflecting. Involves that sense of belonging with others, as well as that insight, which goes beyond myself.
Yeah. And certainly, Ajene, I know for those that may be listening live and those who are going to catch it on recording, we also are not robbing people from a worship of God or a faith structure. Because I know for me personally, a lot of this spiritual and emotional intelligence has helped grow my relationship with God. We don't push that, and we don't tell people you must see it a certain way, but there's no doubt that it has had that benefit, at least for me personally. And I know for you, because we've talked about it.
Yes, yes. I have a personal understanding and relationship with what I would call God. But at the same time, we've talked about that we have an affinity with aspects of all religions and philosophies and worldviews.
Yes. Yeah. Because, it's interesting. We were at a trade show. We were at, it was ATD. I think it was ATD. I always, the acronyms throw me off. I can't remember exactly, but it's the training organization, the national version. Okay. And we were in DC, and Oprah was like the keynote speaker there, right?
Okay.
And we were vendors, so we're exhibitors, right? So we're on the floor, and this particular day, Oprah gave the keynote in the morning, and then they would release everyone out to go and visit exhibitors and stuff. So as you know, Ajene, we're co-developing a product called Spiritual Emotional Intelligence, which is an assessment that helps people in many ways gain insight, like you mentioned. And in its earliest stages, even before we knew you, we had this very small version. Then that was kind of what we were talking about. And we had people come out and they're asking, so what is SEQ? And we explained, well, it's spiritual emotional intelligence. And I remember this one group of women who basically said, so, and they kind of had that quizzical look. I said, well, let me explain something to you. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about who we are at our core, our essence, that kind of thing. And they go, that's what Oprah said. And I go, yes. So next person comes along, I'm going, as you probably heard in Oprah's keynote, it was wonderful.
That's comedy. I love it. Oh, that's awesome, right?
It was wonderful. And I would say Oprah has done a very good job at kind of doing a relatively good job at defining the spiritual. So
I agree.
But anyway, when you were mentioning it just came to my mind, that's that event. So Ajene, when you think about your life, your day in and day out life, in family and community and things like that, what are some of the ways, maybe in the most recent frame, that emotional intelligence has been showing up for you?
Wow, Eric. So emotions show up every moment of my days, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Oh, no, I get it.
It's something that it's taken me, wow. Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit, if that's
right.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was a time in my life, probably, 12, 13 years ago, before I was trained in EQ, where I wasn't feeling I was connecting with my students. I wasn't feeling I was connected with myself or those around me. I wasn't in a good place emotionally. And
Yeah.
that's when I looked up 6 seconds and
Yep.
reached out to Josh and talked to him about, the training that they were doing. And so I decided to attend the training with the hope that it would give me what I needed to reconnect with myself, but also something I could bring back to the people that I really care about. And that's the individuals in my classroom, my young adult students, and helping my institution. So fast forward, the training that I received in there, I've been able to really put into my life in a way that I trust my emotions. I hear them, I see them as that data, and then I've learned to be patient so that I could interpret that data. So I understand what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, and thinking about all the paths that I could go based on that information. So it's who I am now, and it's really helped guide me in all of my life's journeys.
What's funny to me, as an ironic, is this idea about how, at least in America, we've mischaracterized what emotions are. We've misdefined them, I guess, maybe in many ways. And I know so many people who struggle in life because it almost, in some ways, Ajene, they're being tossed around by their emotions, and I know that from my own experiences. I mean, I can think back, your example 12, 13 years ago. And for me, I think back to my corporate life, like, why am I always in this place?
Yeah.
And for me, it was a misalignment thing, right? I was in corporate America, but I was not made for corporate America.
Yeah.
But I kept doing it because I was on that living in that dogma that said, you must, you have to, you should type thing, right? And I found myself, it's not working. So frustration, right? That was an emotion I felt a lot. But instead of letting frustration kind of communicate with me, I'd push it away because it interfered with what I should do, right? What I have to do. And I'm so encouraged in hearing you say that, because what you're saying about the journey, because man, if we can help more people to understand that maybe, like me, maybe frustration was trying to say, Eric, this is not a fit for you. This is not a fit for you. You should look at going in a different direction. Ajené, man, I think to myself, and this is not with regret, because we got to learn. And sometimes experience is the best teacher we know.
Yes,
right?
It is.
Right. However, there's no denying I could go back and go, wow, I could have probably saved myself some time, some, opportunities and all that by listening to what frustration was trying to tell me.
Yeah, that's real, Eric. You saying that, I really want to introduce my young adult students to emotional intelligence. And then I think to myself, wow, we really need to introduce the high school students to emotional intelligence. Then I go, wow, we really need to teach elementary school kids about emotional intelligence and their parents, right? Because we spend so much time focused solely on cognitive, intellectual knowledge, when we know that from a neuroscience perspective, emotions are what drive that. It's directly connected. And I never took a class on emotions growing up. Never. And it's so important to what we do. I've been at the same college for a long time, Eric, and I've made a lot of mistakes. I've lost my temper in the past. I had lost my temper. I said things that I regret saying. And it's because I didn't understand emotions. I didn't understand my own emotions. And I'm thankful that those individuals that I projected those negative words, thoughts, and deeds, I'm glad that they were forgiving.
Yeah. Oh my, yes, boy. Here's to all those people that have given us grace.
Yeah, that's real.
I mean, because Ajene, I got a line of people. Because I don't know if I would have extended the kind of grace that I needed back in that time that I mentioned. I mean, it was, oh gosh. And to your point, right? Now, I know that in some school districts across the country, I know it's probably in pockets, there seems to be some momentum around SEL and the introduction of that, which I think is awesome, because I think it could go a long way at potentially sort of turning the tide generationally.
Yes, yes.
Because I mean, you know, not to give away my generation and age, but the environment I grew up in was, you know, we don't go there.
Eric, come on now. I was just thinking about that this morning, how growing up, I was always told, you're too emotional. Come on, you're too emotional. And that gets into your head. It gets into all young men's heads.
Oh my gosh, Ajene, I just yesterday, my daughter's over for dinner. She's home from college, right? And she mentions this young lady. She says, she wants to talk to you, Dad. And, you know, I always, well, what is it? Does she want to know more about X, or, you know, whatever thing I'm involved in? She says, no. She said her mom was telling her that she needs to, like, I don't know how she worded it. I don't know if she needs to get her act together because no one thinks like you. That's what she told her daughter. No one thinks like you. And she wants to connect me with this young lady to let her know that, no, my dad kind of sees things like that. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, if I could talk to that mom and just say, you know what? I want to validate your right as a mom to be concerned and to feel that. But emotional intelligence would, whoa. Let me say this in a way that's not going to maybe potentially mess with her dignity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I hope that I will be able to connect with her, because I do want to tell her, you're not an alien.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong.
No.
But Ajene, and I don't know this family, I don't know the mother. However, there's a part of me that goes, this is what happens when you focus so much on the intellectual and you just leave emotions floating in the wind.
That's right.
It's like playing the lottery. Well, if you got the right kind of mom, they may say the right thing and may not. I don't think we should be leaving that to chance, right?
Either. We should not. Absolutely. And we should, once society starts to learn the value of our emotions, they'll see that as a special quality that so many people have, right? That we just need to guide them a little bit so they can develop it.
Well, yeah, right. And it comes to that idea that we want to make better decisions.
Yeah.
Okay? Because at some point, right, we all are going to get angry and be triggered, or whatever you want to say. There's going to be times of sadness, going to be times of joy. All these things are just a part of life. But Ajene, the better we get at managing those,
come on now,
right, it leads to those better outcomes. And better outcomes in your job, better outcomes in your family, your community, all those things that, I mean, it's ironic again to me, like in America, we talk about so much about how we want to solve X problem and Y problem, and we want to do better, and we need to, and I'm looking and I'm going, well, inside of all of us is something that can help in a big way. But I gotta say, with warning, Ajene, and I know you and I have talked about this, it's kind of like the idea of a muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you lift some type of weight and exercise that muscle, it will grow.
Yes, it
It
will.
will get stronger. If you ignore it, there's this thing called atrophy, right?
That's right.
And what that does is it leads to the loss of muscle.
Yes, it
So
does.
if we can get into this place of where we understand I've got to consistently be working and exercising this thing called emotional intelligence,
Yes.
our decisions get better and our outcomes get better.
Absolutely. And our performance increases.
Yeah. And that's what we say we want, right?
Absolutely. That's what I want.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, yeah, I got up this morning and I know I've done some things that maybe have thwarted myself a little bit, but I want to make good decisions today.
Me too.
Right. So let me ask you this as it relates, because I know you work in environments where your audience, your students, they're a bit younger. And if you were to say to them, maybe a student asked you, well, why should I bother with this emotion and paying attention and gaining insight? What would some of the things you'd tell them?
Wow. Okay, so when you were talking, this image came into my mind, Eric. It
Yep.
was of a door. And I really believe that I can equip my students with the knowledge they need to get to the door. They can overcome all the obstacles to get to the door with the knowledge that they gain, the intellectual prowess that they attain in college. But I think what will separate them from the competition, other students who are trying to get into the same careers as they're getting into, the key that will unlock the door is emotional intelligence. So I would try to explain it to them that it is as important as intellectual cognitive intelligence, right?
Yep.
But the difference is we're born, I can't change my intellect. You're kind of born with it, and you may be able to change it 1 or 2 points. But if emotional intelligence can unlock the door and it's something you can develop and improve and grow in, then your potential for success increases exponentially. You with me?
Yeah.
And so if all the students are equally balanced intellectually, it's the emotional intelligence that will separate them and make them stand out from everyone else.
Yeah.
Open up those doors of opportunity.
Because there's studies, right, that it's a greater predictor of success than IQ, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is, Eric. So and I haven't shared that with my students this semester yet. So I have to do that next week when I see them, or tomorrow when I see them. Thank you for reminding me.
All right. I get a little bit of fingerprint on your student.
Also, I'm thinking, I think everyone needs to know, that they have this wisdom within themselves, that wisdom of emotions that they need to really allow to come to the surface so they can, this sounds kind of strange, Eric, that they can establish a relationship with it, right?
Yep.
And once they begin to trust their emotions, it can serve as it's better than Siri. When you ask Siri for how do I get here, how do I get there, right? And Siri, and we trust it, our emotions can do the same thing with our lives. But we have to get to the point where we can trust it, which, let's be honest, takes work.
Yeah, it does. And I'm glad you mentioned that because it does. And I've used this analogy a lot lately because I know, when you're in a session or you're in a class and you hear something that sounds really, really good, and or you feel in your gut that it's going to improve your life, you're ready to go, right? And then reality comes and knocks on your door. And reality meaning, oh my gosh, I forgot, I've got to pick my mom up for a doctor's appointment. Oh my gosh, my boss says I have to have this turned in by X, and I haven't heard back yet from the vendor. I mean, on all the different stuff of life. And I use this to say, Ajene, visually, when you look at my hands, when we make a decision to change, or when we are confronted with that, we're on this side of it, right? On this side is the breakthrough, right? But this area here in between my hands, the in between, is where the battles are fought.
Ooh.
This is where, in between here, is where we give up. It's where we are frustrated. It's where we were making progress, but we're coming backwards. And I tell people, especially our clients, you've got to persevere in this in between.
Yeah.
Because right out here is the breakthrough.
Yeah.
And when you get to breakthrough,
yeah,
I kind of liken it, things become effortless.
yeah.
And they're effortless, Ajene, and not because you didn't work on it. Because my gosh, you talk to anybody that's been in the in between, it is hard work.
It is.
But it's kind of that, it's you because you know me, my Miles Davis thinking, when he would play his horn, it was like it was effortless. It was just, it flowed out of him, right? That to me is how we can live life. And emotional intelligence is the key, as you mentioned, to opening that door. And I would just encourage everyone who's on here today that's listening to our conversation, those that are listening to the recording, is that have that perseverance. Because once, again, you get to breakthrough, I mean, it becomes effortless. It becomes very, very powerful.
Eric, I retook the say a few weeks ago.
Yeah, the assessment.
Because I've just been feeling off a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see how it, what it said.
Yeah.
And one of the things it said is you need to spend more time alone and spend some time, and it suggested meditation. And Eric, I allowed myself, I normally meditate every single day.
Right.
Single day, Eric, but I haven't the last 3 months. So reading that from the say just reinforced a habit, a healthy habit I have of meditation. So I've gotten back into the groove. So now again, every morning I'm meditating. And like you said, that muscle, when you work it, it strengthens it. So just in 2 weeks, I'm feeling more like I was, or as I should be feeling normally. But I had given that up because I considered myself too busy.
Yes, and that's a common thing, Ajene, right? And it's dangerous.
It is.
Because you could ask a number of people, if their employer said, hey, we need you to work 80 hours this week because we got a project, people will jump up and volunteer, and they'll move heaven and earth. But if you say to them, your project is 80 hours this week is to work on you, you'll have people look at you like you got 3 heads, man. But isn't that ironic?
It is.
I mean, the gift of the human body, mind, spirit gets left as an afterthought.
Yeah.
But when a corporation calls, it's, I'll do anything. And don't get me wrong, audience, please don't misunderstand me. Ajene, I know you know my heart.
No.
I'm not criticizing business and companies, but I firmly believe we need to make it a priority to work on ourselves.
We do. I think more people are starting to realize, but it's not the norm, how all that's interconnected, right? How it's all interconnected, body, mind, and soul. And if we're off-centered in one area, it's going to affect the others.
Yeah. And Ajene, isn't it interesting? And I've spent enough time on the road now, to this road of life, to go, I'm sorry, I'm not going to negotiate anymore around working on me. I'm just not going to do it.
That's right.
And if that means I get threatened by a business partner or a client, I'm not, obviously I'm not an employee, then I'll say, then that's what you have to do. But I'm not going, there's no going back.
That's right.
And it's interesting because if you would have met me 15, 20 years ago, I would have said, that's crazy. Why would you do that? You've got to keep growing, and growing in the sense of getting promoted and making more money and all those different things. No, that's not more valuable than my body, mind, and spirit, man.
No, it's not, Eric.
Yeah.
It's not at all. I'm in the same place that you are at. Exactly. I have to take care of me as much as the world will demand otherwise, right? But I need that energy so that I can do what we're talking about in the world to make a difference.
Exactly. And you know what? I think, and this is that, kind of going back to that analogy of the in-between, if we get to breakthrough, which is a confidence builder too, right? We do become more courageous.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right.
We do find that energy that we need to say to our boss or say to a volunteer organization, I want to help you, but I cannot sacrifice my physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health in the pursuit of doing that. Could we find a middle ground? Because I'm telling you, Ajene, again, I'm making sure all my secrets come out and for all to see. I didn't have that courage in corporate America.
You just said the key word. That's really, for me, it was my fear. And it wasn't until I started really focusing on developing who I am and my emotional intelligence and everything that's associated with that, that I realized that fear I had, once acknowledged, is such a good quality, because the opposite of fear is courageousness. So along that journey, those steps, as I'm understanding this fear that I've had all my life in so many different areas, it's allowed me to become courageous.
And kind of comes back to that, what we were saying in the early part of the session here, is that if I could take some time to pay attention to fear, not judge it, not condemn myself for it, right? And that choice to go, you know what, I'm gonna just sit here for a minute with my fear. Where's that coming from? Why am I feeling fear right now?
That's right.
And if you can do it with curiosity and keep the judgment at bay, you might find out, I'm thinking back to my life back 15 years ago, fear might have been saying, hey, Eric, it's blocking you from moving in a certain direction that you need to go. This is what fear is trying to tell you. That's what's at risk, is your future self, your future desires, right?
Wow.
But what happens, Ajene, and again, I'm going to vulnerability here. I took the other route. I got to fight that fear. I got to deny that fear. I got to get that fear out of here. Fear is weakness. Fear is something that I'll push through. I'll work harder. I'll go at it. I'll be better. I'll perform, right?
That's right. Me too, Eric. But we realize now that that's how we're taught.
Yes.
Which is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why what we're talking about seems so hard. It's because we're having to push down and push back how we were conditioned to respond to this data that we call emotions.
Yeah.
But in actuality, it's not that hard. All we got to do is what you just said. Sit back, get curious, not be judgmental of ourselves, and see what it's teaching us.
Yeah, because you know what? I've been reading, I know in some circles it's called a devotional, maybe it's a journal or whatever, but the subject matter for this week is about questions and about the necessity to linger in a question versus jumping to an immediate response, right? And I'm learning, man, that more of my life is about the letting go and the pause than it is about acquiring and accumulating and performing. But here's what's interesting, Ajene, and I've seen this in you. Okay. I don't think I've ever verbalized this. So this is a first. Everyone in the audience, it's now coming out. Your ability to give away what is inside of you is, I mean, it's always been inspiring to me, but it's always, it's kind of pulled out of me this idea that this is someone that is at peace with what they're saying. They're good with it, you know, Ajene, because we have so many folks, and a lot of these folks are in the public eye who are positioning. They're looking at you and they're looking at me. What will I want? What will you want? How could I say this? Maybe if I pull out, I've got an MBA. Will they be impressed by me? And Ajene, with you, it's been so refreshing because it's been like, this is who I am.
Thanks,
and I truly understand, Ajene. I don't want to give anybody the sense that you just woke up one day and you were that person, right? Because I know, as you said, it's work, but that's in all of us. And I feel like in many respects, it's like in all of us, it's like it's screaming to get out.
I agree. It is.
Know?
We're no different than anyone else, right?
Exactly. Oh my goodness. I mean, if we had like a 2-hour session, I could go back to some history that would blow your mind.
No, you and I both, Eric.
Yeah,
I think back to my younger days, and I've grown up and had acquired wisdom because of these experiences. And then Eric, you know, we all have stories.
Yeah.
And I've been really fortunate with my stories and some of their outcomes. And those have shaped me in this as well. So I feel committed to be the best person I can and to use that to do what I can to be of service to others.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about it, Ajene, do you, because I'm concerned about a lot of what has been birthed out of this pandemic era that we've been in for now close to 2 years. You know, and the work that we do together and separately, there is an urgency to get to people. And I know for me, it's that I want to let you know that it's okay. I want to let you know that there is hope. I want to let you know that, you know, if things haven't been working, you can turn today. Okay. And it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, that we don't need you to be some superstar. We don't need you to impress. We just need you to be you. Right. What is the sense that you're getting in the academic world as it relates to where people are at as far as that hope, this the optimism thing?
Wow, Eric. Okay, I have to answer that from a couple of perspectives.
Absolutely.
One is, I believe it's taught my colleagues and I to be more compassionate.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because I work at a community college, right? That's why I love it. I love a community college. I love our students and the people that are there because they know they can make the difference in the lives of young adults.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the pandemic really showed my colleagues and I the inequalities that exist with students not having internet, students not having technology, fast enough technology to do the work that's required for an online class, because we converted all of our classes to online. So I think that was a positive. It gave my colleagues and I a deeper compassion for where our students at, their goal to accomplish higher education and how much of a struggle it is. So that's a beautiful thing. From the students' perspective, I learned and I learned so much about our students and the challenges they've endured pre-pandemic, but the struggles they're having now with, family members passing away and students having to step up to be breadwinners, within the family, taking care of siblings while parents may be at work, and still trying to take classes and go to school and get A's.
Yeah.
And that's, wow, right? You got to respect that. You got to respect that.
Absolutely.
And then at the same time, there's contention that exists, right? Which always exists, I think, in all areas, where people have the same thought process or ideology about how education should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that way anymore. So I don't want to go negative. I want to stay positive. So I'm seeing now, as we begin to return to a sense of normality, that my colleagues are excited. Many of them are really excited to come back, and they appreciate what we took for granted in the past. That as being in the classroom and having face-to-face interactions with students, having face-to-face interaction with colleagues. So I think we learned a lot of lessons over the last 2 years, and we're going to bring those lessons learned and create a better environment, a better educational institution for our students experientially through showing grace and compassion.
Well, my hope would be, Ajene, and I obviously have very limited knowledge about your school. I hope that those who are, I would imagine, in administration would hold all of you accountable to that compassion, meaning it's not a take it or leave it anymore.
No,
If you can't be compassionate, you can't be a teacher or professor here.
Right? I love that. I do love that. And I think it's gonna be not only administrators, Eric, but it's gonna have to be, because there's many more teachers on campus, faculty. We have to hold each other accountable to this new standard of education that our students have always deserved. But now we don't have an excuse, because we've learned so many lessons over the last 2 years about them, about the system, and how we need to change to bring. So Eric, over the last 2 years, I think I've been an okay teacher, but over the last 2 years and teaching online because of COVID, I had to really start to research, and I realized how I need to I realized that connecting emotions to the educational process allows students to connect. It's not that I'm talking about emotional intelligence in the classroom necessarily, but it's how I'm presenting the material so that when they make a connection, it's connected to an emotion. And that kind of solidifies it in the students' minds. And I think it's a form of what we call constructivist pedagogy. And I've been really using that in my classrooms, and it's really making a huge difference, I think.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. I am looking at 12:45, Ajene, and as I warned you, we could talk for a long time.
I want to say one more thing, if that's okay, Eric.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, this process with my students, I've had to learn to show them that I'm trustworthy of them and that I'm trust willing. I don't think most people see that enough in individuals. And I think it's something that if we can learn to show, it breaks down walls and opens up opportunity for discussion and hope and everything else that goes along with it.
I mean, trustworthy, obviously we've heard for many a time. Trust willing, man, that's a keeper.
I heard that from a friend of mine a few months ago, and it just blew my mind in how it plays out in my life and my interactions. I want to be
So,
worthy and trust willing.
so trust willing, because I want to make sure there could be some out there who are going, what exactly does that mean? So if you had to unwrap that a little bit before we segue to questions, how would you define that? What is trust willing?
So there's so many, not so many, there's instances where someone may say something
Mhm.
and you go right into defense mode, right?
Mhm.
But you can take a breath or two, re-engage that person, internally telling yourself, I'm going to be willing to listen to this person, trusting that they're going to come from their heart, even if I disagree with what they're saying.
Mhm.
And in that, the person will feel it. They'll feel it. And they'll see that you're willing to hear what they have to say. Even if I disagree, I can be willing to hear and trust that they're coming from their heart. And if we can both get into that space, we can have a wonderful dialogue. And that's what we need today to bring about the change. If we can trust both ways, have that dialogue, I think we can start to make some meaningful change.
Wow. I have to share with you a brief story that connects to that. And thank you for unwrapping that, because it really does speak. It just speaks volumes. So where I'm at, Ajene, there's she's not quite a friend, but she's getting there. I think she might call me kind of a friend, but she's probably more of a client. And she's in the diversity, equity, and inclusion arena. She's with a local school district, fairly large district, where she's oversees that initiative. And when she was hired, it was big news in that community because they'd never hired anyone in that role.
Mm.
So she was the first, and she got a lot of applause. Right, a lot of people were excited, and there were some that were not so excited.
Yeah, cool.
There was a particular gentleman who had a bit of an audience on Facebook and was prone to announcing all the different things that he was for and against, and the community needs to look at this and don't look at that. And I'm smiling right now, Ajene, because I have some very pointed thoughts about social media, but I'm not going to do that today with you. So he's on his soapbox on social media, and he's telling his audience, I'm going to get a meeting with that new DEI director, and she's going to need to understand we're not going to have any of this CRT, and we're not going, that doesn't belong in this school district, and we're not going to listen to this and that and us. And he's just banging the drum. Everybody, listen. So he makes this appointment with my friend, and I feel kind of bad for him because she's not one to, how would I say? She's a professional.
I got you.
In the most positive of ways.
Mm-hmm.
She's full of grace, but at the same time, she's done this DEI work for large global companies, but you'd never know it. She doesn't wear it on her sleeve. Mm-hmm. So he gets the meeting with her, and he's laboring on about, okay, this is not going to happen, and CRT is not that. Blah. And she says, sir, I just want to interrupt you for a minute. You're the first person in this district who's ever mentioned to me about CRT. He stops. He's kind of shocked. She goes on basically in the most loving way to whittle away at his arguments and his pronouncements. And he had come in there with just a little bit of knowledge, thinking that he had a bunch of it.
Yeah, I understand that.
And you know what? Again, that grace piece, she didn't tear him down. She could have, because it was clear we're talking about like a high school basketball player talking to Kevin Durant, right? Mm-hmm. There's just not a comparison. And he comes out of there with this, you know, I really appreciate you helping me here. I didn't realize, and now that I know, and as much as that story illustrates somebody who probably should have had a better understanding about where they stood, I thought it was powerful that she was willing to listen.
That's right.
And she let him spout on about all these different things that were not so. Because Ajene, in other situations, somebody could have just went total warfare.
We have lots of examples of that.
Yeah. And just when you said trust willing, man. All right. So I'm gonna pause here. I want to open it up to everyone in the audience, opportunities to ask questions of Ajene.
Not that I'll have the answers.
No, he's guaranteed. He that's a disclaimer. He doesn't have all the answers, but I know he's got a few. So I will put him on the spot. I will monitor the chat if you feel more comfortable typing in, and I'll relay them that way. Or if you'd like, you can unmute yourself. And what questions would you have for Ajene today?
Good morning. I
Good
am
morning.
Dr. Reverend Amandra McClendon, and
Welcome.
Ajene is my good friend.
Yes.
And now Eric is my good friend.
Oh my gosh, I got a new friend today.
First, I want to just thank you. Thank you. I have like 5 pages of notes here, right? For the dialogue. And I am going to stay on point. So I have 2 comments I want to make, and then I have 1 question.
All right.
First, I want to say thank you for unwrapping trust willing, because that was definitely going to be a question. So I appreciate that. So one point I want to make earlier when you were talking about men and emotions, men being told you're too emotional. Well, as a female, I was told you're not emotional enough. You're too hard. You need to be more feminine.
Right.
So that's on both sides.
Yeah, you're right.
And I struggled with that because it's okay. I'm not trying to be masculine. I'm just sharing what I believe to be my truth.
Yeah.
So that was one point. The other point is my background, or I should say, I am actually teaching multi-faith diversity awareness and education to professionals. That's a taboo conversation because it's all in that whole realm of people think it's in the realm of spirituality and religion, but it's actually not. So the point I wanted to say is that what occurs for us is we leave out our emotions and our spirituality. We leave that out of the conversation. And that is actually our divinity. That's our essence. So we're running around operating with just like not even a third of who we are, wondering why we feel disjointed.
Yeah.
So that was the point I wanted to make.
That's good.
Thank you. For the question, I wrote it down. Before we can trust our emotions, don't we have to be able to separate what I'm calling fake thoughts, those thoughts that people implant in our head, from our true essence, from, I call it our intuitive self. So we're walking around, and like the young lady you talked about, her mother gave her some false thoughts. They're stuck in her head. But then she has these other thoughts, her intuitive self. So how do you get individuals to begin to trust their emotions when they got stuff coming from both sides? One is fake, one is actually our true essence. So that's my question.
That's a good question.
That's a really good question. I got some thoughts, but you go ahead, Ajene.
So, what comes to my mind is what I try to do is help individuals develop an emotional intelligence mindset. And we have tools which are really nice, Amandra, that are based on competencies that can be measured.
Okay.
So with these tools, I'm able to utilize them and point out specific areas that we can work on to improve that will alter the existing mindset of the individual and then gets them on that path toward change and evolution.
All right. Okay.
I would throw in there as well, and this is sometimes with our clients, the mistake gets made, because as you all probably realize in the business world and the corporate world, there tends to be this desire for the quick fix.
Yeah.
Send folks to a seminar, and then next week everybody is emotionally intelligent.
Right.
What we try to remind people that not only is it work, it's the beginning of a journey.
That's right.
And I'm still on it. Ajené is still on it. We all are still on the journey. And I think sometimes if we start there and realize that, it makes us less, it makes us less anxious about getting to the place where our intuitive self is more powerful than the voices outside of us, right? And one of the things I would recommend for everyone, there is a book called The Road Back to You, and it's written by, it's two authors, Ian Cron, I think that's how he pronounces his last name, and Suzanne Stabile. But if you type in to Amazon or Google or whatever, The Road Back to You, it'll come up. And what I love about it is it's a tool to help you better understand who you are. And they do some wonderful work around the Enneagram, which some of you may have heard of. And it's about establishing and understanding more about your personality. But they do a wonderful job in helping us understand that, again, this is the first steps of a journey. This is a tool to help me gain more understanding, gain more data, as Ajené mentioned earlier about emotions. Because show me a person that has great understanding of who they are, a great understanding of their emotions. I'll show you someone that, yeah, they get those outside voices, but they know it's the intuitive. That's who I am. And no one's going to rob me of that. I, as an example, I didn't know that back in my corporate days. So I was easily swayed when I heard those voices that said, well, you can't do that because you gotta be concerned about that 401k. Because I didn't know. I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe that's right. I wasn't listening to that intuitive, but just as a suggestion, it's a great book. But we do have another question in the chat. Ajené, would you give an example of how you access emotional intelligence? I know you may have kind of alluded to it a little bit, but maybe a little bit different. And this is from Justin.
Wow, how I access it. That's interesting. So I come from the perspective of training, right? Mm-hmm. Training my mind, training my body, training myself spiritually. And so at the beginning, it was really challenging keeping these concepts of recognizing my emotional patterns, mm-hmm. thinking about the consequences of me allowing my emotions to lead the way in a way that I'm not consciously thinking about, right?
Yeah.
And over the years, did you hear me, Eric? I said years.
Yes.
Yes.
It's become part of who I am, so that in situations, it just kicks in without me necessarily thinking about it consciously. It's part of who I am now. But I'm going to go back, Justin. When I first started, it took me looking at my report, making goals of things I wanted to be aware of every single day, and making sure daily I was reflective. Y'all would think I'm crazy because I journal every single night. Did y'all hear me? I reflect on my day, all the things I said, all the things I did,
and I journal it. And then I make a notation of the things that I didn't mean to say, I didn't mean to do, and how it may have come off. And I'll clarify it the next day with the individual who I've been speaking to or my class.
Wow.
That's part of the work I think that's needed toward us gaining that ability to trust our emotions and that data that it's telling us. But it takes a lot of work. This has been years, and I still don't have it. Because I said the report just told me, you haven't been meditating. You need to meditate.
But Ajene, I think there's something that I would just say to everyone listening, you're worth this work. You're worth this work.
Absolutely. We all are, aren't we? Absolutely.
You all are worth this work.
That's good.
The paradigm we've been fed over the years in our culture has been, well, you can get to that later.
Yeah.
Well, that's not that you don't necessarily need to do that. You've got to focus on your retirement. You got to focus on your mortgage. You got to, I'm just here to tell you, you are worth the work. But here's the deal. You got to believe that. I can't believe it for you.
Yeah. We can't believe the narrative that the world puts at us. Emotions are an integral and healthy part of who we are.
And if the world was so smart, why we got all these problems?
Come on.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. You said I'm not going to go negative, so I apologize. I want to read something from, I think it's Keira. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I'm going to, you're one of Ajene's business students. She wanted to say that she absolutely loved this discussion, very insightful and informative, and loved getting a new perspective and idea of what people feel about their emotions. That's awesome. Thank you for that. So as our time is, we're getting over, we're a little over, but that's okay. Any other questions? Don't feel rushed. I mean, I think Ajene's got a little bit of time. I do as well. Are there any other questions that you might have for Ajene today for this session?
So when did you say the spiritual, emotional IQ is rolling out?
Well, Ajene, I'll throw in and you can throw in. Right now, this tool that we call SEQ is a profile. It's a one-pager that someone can get after answering, what is it, like 100 questions on the profile, Ajene?
Mm-hmm.
So what we've been doing, we've always had a dream and a desire to turn that into a more in-depth type of report. And I can say this without giving away any state secrets, I think, Ajene, we're really close to where this thing will turn into being maybe close to a 20-page report on spiritual emotional intelligence.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we're uber excited. And I didn't talk a lot about it in this frame because I wanted Ajene to be able to talk from his heart. But he's co-developing this with us. So we're all kind of giddy about how close we are.
Yeah.
And certainly by 2022, a person will be able to take this assessment. They'll get a 20-page report that will go really, really in depth around the spiritual emotional intelligence factor. So, Ajene, you want to throw out? Go ahead.
Yeah. So we have two. We have level A and level B, right?
Yes.
So the one that we're finishing now is level B, and you need someone who's been certified to work through that with you because of the dangers that can possibly exist with you just reading it on your own. And then we have the original one that Eric's talking about. That's the one-page report that you can sign up and take. As a matter of fact, we're in the process of developing an online module for individuals to get certified in the one-page evaluation for the SEQ.
Yeah. There is from Justin, I just saw here in the chat, Ajene, is the SEQ available for children too. There is no specific one developed right now that is designed for children. I might say because of the depth, it would just be a matter of, and I'm going to go out on a limb, Ajene, so you can keep me straight here. If I wanted my child, and again, I'm not knowing Justin exactly what age, we're going to assume a level of maturity of understanding. I would say I would say a parent would want to be involved in that process. so that they could help kind of guide and shepherd, if you will. But right now it is targeted to adult learners.
Yes. Excellent. Well put.
Anything else?
I just have a comment.
Yes, please.
Sorry. Hi,
No,
it's Amy. Don't know if you remember me, Professor Wilcoxson. I was part of LLN when you were running it.
I remember. Nice
So
to see you.
I just nice to see you. I just want to thank you guys so much. I am now in Nevada, so I transferred here with the company I'm part of. And I am definitely in this growth in my life, right? So I don't know, I'm getting emotional, but thank you so much. This actually came at a good time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to email me, I'm going to put my email address in the chat box, okay?
All right, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot for me, and I know it does for Ajené as well.
Yeah, please email me so we can catch up.
Okay, and anyone else with a question or a comment that you'd want to, I think, take off?
Yes,
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Okay. Please.
You know, I was looking forward for this event so much, and Dr. Ajené is like an extraordinary person, but being here, it's like a privilege. But I wanted to, this is a comment, but like that I've experienced, and Dr. Ajené probably would be my witness on this one. There was a point in my life where you really don't, education has nothing to do with it. Level of like where you are accomplished has nothing to do with it. And I was keep on questioning why me, why this, what am I doing? The feeling of not being enough, regardless of what I did. I remember it was 2 years ago, it was a rainy day, and I had my umbrella and I walked into Dr. Ajené's office. I said, Dr. Ajené, I've got only this year, I got 76 letter of rejection. Why this is happening to me? I just need to, and I know this is November and I have another month. I know it's going to be 100, but now what? So I was really down on I have the education, I've had everything. I was working for a great place, but I wasn't happy. I was feeling not enough. I was feeling really, my emotions were all over, not understanding what I was feeling. Not like, as you mentioned, Mr. Eric, you said that fear, you know, not dealing with my own fear, that not questioning where this was coming from. So after talking to Dr. Ajené, and he became my mentor, and we were going through the classes together, we went through that stuff. Really, our conversation, Dr. Ajené, had a huge impact on me when it comes to emotional intelligence and things like that. I had to really stop, and I had to like focus. All my books, everything that I read was around that. I do teach, but I also was not understanding how to handle my emotion. I felt like I was being an imposter. I was feeling that I was living two life. This is the life that I wanted to be, but this is what other people expected of me. How can I merge all of them together? To me, this emerge was like a big thing, and I'm not there. And I'm so excited that you guys have programs like this, and I can't wait to be part of it, because I feel like I'm going through a lot in my personal life right now, just like what you mentioned about the battle between the two. I am right in the middle right now. I am right here. So there are times I'm like, I can't drop. I started this. So this really hit home. I got emotional in so many areas of it. It was in every aspect of this conversation. It literally took me back to my childhood, brought me back present, it was like so many shifts in my head, and I'm like overwhelmed, like Miss Amy said, emotional. But again, I came from a background, from a culture where you cannot express your emotions. You have to be strong for your kids. You have to be strong for the society. You have to be strong because you chose to do this thing yourself. Now I just don't agree with that. I'm like, you know what? No, I can be. What is a strong got to do with me experiencing my own emotions? What is a strong, so meaning that to me, I feel like when I get emotional in front of people, I feel like to me, that's the most strongest thing that you can do, to actually cry in front of somebody, because that takes a special kind of a strength to be able to cry in front of somebody and say, you know what, I'm crying, because you know your face changes, your whole to me, that's the most level of highest confidence. But yet we're labeled as weak, we're labeled as, so to me, that was my battle. But I really, really appreciate this. This is like hit home in so many levels. I just want to thank you guys so much. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I will say, as we come to closing today, there was a wise person said to me some years ago that, Eric, never trust someone that doesn't have a limp. Do not trust someone that does not have a limp. And at first I was thinking, okay, limping. Okay, what would that? And I was kind of young at the time, a little naive. And I asked, well, what do you, he says, Eric, the people that have a limp have been hurt. You can trust somebody that's been hurt. If you encounter people that they've got it all together, they've got every designation, every certification, they've done this, they've done that. Not saying that they're not someone you could learn from, but be careful, because the people with a limp, they've been hurt. You can trust those people. All right, Ajené, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for everyone who's attended. And we won't be doing an EQ Conversations in December for maybe the obvious reason, holidays are throwing everything up in the air, but please stay tuned. And certainly for the recording of this, if you know someone that could benefit from this outside of our time together, please, we want you to send that on. And we look forward to being with you the next time. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.